she's got me.
Congratulations, you've just got your first ferrets. You survived day 1, hopefully because you watched my day 1 guide, but now the real fun starts. And that fun can get painful if you're not prepared. Stick around because at the end I'll show you one simple trick that makes your first bonding play sessions safer and way more fun. Most of what you're about to see comes straight from the questions you've been asking on the first 3 parts of this beginner's guide series. The stuff that actually matters once ferrets come home. Feeding worries, health concerns, bonding questions, the everyday reality of living with ferrets. So today we're covering daily care, feeding properly, routine health maintenance, and how to spot problems early. And we're starting with one of the biggest concerns for new ferret owners, vet care. Once your new noodles have had a few days to settle in, you need to book them in for a checkup with the vet you've chosen, because you did find a good vet before you collected them, right? At this first visit, your vet will check them over and then advise you on the next steps. That may include vaccinations, especially if your ferrets go outdoors or come into contact with other animals. If you have young kits, this is also the time to discuss reproductive health plans. I cover this in much more detail in part 2 of the series, which I've linked here because it's one of the most common areas new owners get caught out with.
No.
Parasite prevention is another thing to ask about. Depending on where you live and how your ferrets are housed, fleas, ear mites, and in some areas lungworm can be a risk, especially for outdoor ferrets. This is also the time to get your pets microchipped if that's available where you live. In some places it's actually a legal requirement. In any case, it is the best chance you have of recovering a lost ferret, so well worth the peace of mind. Once that first visit is done and your ferrets are deemed healthy, most people won't need to see a vet very often. Aside from boosters if you're doing vaccinations and occasional checkups, most vet visits after that will be for investigating problems if they come up. One thing I always tell new owners is, pay attention to the poop. Ferrets are very good at hiding illness. By the time they look obviously unwell, they've often been feeling bad for a while. But the litter tray never lies. Changes in consistency, colour, or frequency of pooping are often the very first signs that something isn't right. When your ferrets are new in your home, they're likely to be upset for a while, so don't worry unduly about runny poops to start, especially if you're changing their diet. More about that in the next section. Bright green or yellow diarrhea, bloody poops, or thin ribbony poops are always red flags and worth a vet visit.
I'm going to give the vet a call.
As you get to know your ferrets, it's important you handle them often and understand what normal looks and feels like. Pay attention to their energy levels, their appetite, their weight, the way they feel in your hands. Hair loss is also a red flag, especially around the base of the tail, as this can be a sign of immune disorders and cancers that are common in ferrets. However, it's not always disastrous.
Good boy.
Many ferrets also get something called rat tail as they age or during the molting season, where the tail sheds faster and grows back slower. It looks dramatic, but it usually resolves on its own. But if you do notice any changes from the norm combined with consistently problematic poops, that's the time to start booking a vet visit. Coughing and gagging while eating is also to be expected, especially when they're crunching on raw bones. It might look like they have something stuck in their throat, but don't worry unduly. Give them space to clear that blockage themselves. It is what their bodies are built to do. Only intervene if the gagging persists and they start looking distressed. Repeated coughing, repeated vomiting, or sudden lethargy is not something to ignore. If something feels off, it's always better to check early than wait and hope it passes. The good news is that a lot of long-term health problems can be reduced with good daily care at home, and that brings us nicely to the next part, routine health maintenance. Aside from health problems, there are a few maintenance jobs you're going to need to perform regularly to keep your noodles healthy and happy.
Ready? Here you go.
Claw trimming is one of the most regular jobs, which will need doing every 2 to 3 weeks. Don't skip it, because if the claws get too long, they can snag painfully on fabric, get caught in bedding, or make play uncomfortable for both you and them.
Look at your little feet.
Ears are another thing to keep an eye on. A bit of wax is normal, but strong smells, heavy dark build-up,
Good girl.
or lots of scratching can be signs of ear mites or infection. Gentle cleaning with a cotton bud when needed is usually enough, and anything persistent is a job for your vet. Teeth often get forgotten, but dental health matters more than people realise. Good chewing textures and appropriate food will do most of the work naturally, and occasional vet checkups to spot early signs of gum disease. The gold standard in home maintenance is to brush their teeth frequently with a small, soft, bristled brush, like this one designed for cats,
What is it?
and a special pet toothpaste to tackle that tartar. Feeding is one of the biggest topics in ferret care, and also one of the most confusing for new owners, because there's a lot of strong opinions out there and a lot of misleading products. At the most basic level, ferrets are obligate carnivores. Their bodies are designed to eat animal protein and fat, not carbohydrates, grains or sugar. So whatever feeding route you choose, the goal is always the same: high protein, high meat content and minimal fillers. If you're feeding raw, a simple guideline is that most ferrets will eat around 5 to 10% of their body weight per day. The classic balance people aim for is known as the 80-10-10 model, roughly 80% muscle meat and fat, 10% edible bone and 10% organs. For beginners, ground raw mixes are often the easiest place to start. They're balanced, convenient, and reduce the risk of ferrets selectively picking out only the bits they like. They're not always the cheapest option, but they are very practical when you're learning. Eggs are another useful addition, but only occasionally, especially during shedding season. When ferrets groom themselves, they swallow a lot of fur. An egg helps that fur pass through the digestive system more safely and reduces the risk of blockages. Sadly, not everyone starts with ferrets on a good diet. Pet shop ferrets in particular often arrive eating low-quality kibble, and if you live in the USA, that applies especially to you. Switching food is possible, but it can be a struggle if they haven't had a varied diet when they were young. This is a huge topic, so if you want deeper guidance, I've linked a playlist for you here. One thing you'll notice very quickly once feeding is dialed in is that everything else improves too. Better coats, better energy, smaller, less smelly poops, and generally happier ferrets. Let's talk about smell, because if you own ferrets you already know, this conversation is inevitable.
With a little massage.
First, the important bit. Most of the bad smell people complain about doesn't actually come from the ferrets themselves. It comes from dirty trays, old bedding, and poor food choices. That said, ferrets do have a natural musky smell. Some people say it smells like corn chips. To me, it smells more like fresh popcorn.
I think it's an absolutely lovely smell, but not everybody does.
And honestly, once you live with ferrets for a while, your brain just accepts it, and in some ways it will become your happy smell. But not everyone loves it, especially visitors. What you don't want to do is try and bathe that smell away. Ferrets don't need regular baths. In fact, bathing them too often makes things worse. When you strip their natural oils, their skin goes into overdrive trying to replace them, which can actually make them smell stronger. So routine bathing is not the solution. However, sometimes ferrets make terrible life choices. Like pooping on themselves, pooping on each other,
Ranged warfare.
or falling asleep in a pile of poop. Yes, Zorro, I'm looking at you.
Zorro, why are you asleep in the poo tray?
In those situations, a bath is completely reasonable. When you do need to bathe them, gentle is the key. Prepare the bath like you would for a baby, just above skin temperature, not too deep, and never use shampoos or detergents. Instead, add a couple of handfuls of oats tied up in a sock to the water so it turns milky. This will help protect your noodle's skin rather than stripping the oils away. The biggest long-term smell improvements come from everything around your ferrets. Better food, clean bedding, and regular poop disposal runs will make a huge difference. And then there's one very specific ferret habit that deserves an honourable mention here: bum dragging. You see, ferrets like to wipe their little tushies when they've used the litter tray. I'm pretty sure this happens with all ferrets, but let me know in comments if you have a bum dragger or not. A simple trick that saves your carpet from skid marks is placing a soft, washable bath mat near litter areas. And once care, food and hygiene are locked in, the really rewarding parts start shining through. Bonding.
Thank you.
This is where ferret ownership really becomes fun. Because ferrets don't just live in your house, they want to interact with you. They want to play. They want chaos, cuddles, and sometimes to chomp. And yes, that play tip I promised is coming. We're nearly there. Initial bonding is mostly about time and consistency. Sitting on the floor with them, following their games, and letting them lead play builds trust fast. You'll also learn that ferrets explore the world teeth first. Nipping is normal, especially with young or newly rehomed ferrets. The key is staying calm, setting consistent boundaries, and redirecting to toys instead of skin. If biting becomes intense or persistent, I've linked a full behaviour guide here, but for most people, this is just enthusiastic ferret energy.
Even a spicy mood.
Once your ferrets trust you, one of their absolute favourite games is hand wrestling. They'll bounce at your hands, chasing them under the rug, grabbing, rolling, and generally acting like tiny sock-shaped demons. This isn't aggression, it's them having fun, and to be included in that means they've really accepted you as family. It also means you're going to look like you've had a boxing match with a porcupine, which is where my pro play tip I promised earlier comes in. Fingerless gloves. They will give enthusiastic wrestlers like Wriggles something to latch onto without hurting your hands, while leaving your fingers free to dish out tactical tummy tickles. Of course, you need to act like it hurts, and to try and escape, that's part of the fun.
She's stabbing me! Help! Help!
Just don't be too rough, as you're a lot bigger than them. Keep it classy, light and chaotic. That is the way of the ferret. If you want any more ideas for play, bonding, and keeping your ferrets mentally stimulated, check out my full 50 Ways to Play with Your Ferrets guide next. Or you can visit this playlist if you want to know more about our story. Because, like Wriggles hanging off my gloved hand, you're locked in now, no turning back. So you might as well enjoy the ride. See you next time, Floof Crew.